knowing your numbers can be that, like, how do you then balance that with day-to-day life of, we're going for dinner for this, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Lower calorie crisps, use 0 calorie drinks, don't get a stuffed crust pizza, get a tin-based pizza. Let's go with lighter than light mayo. Let's use a bit less butter. Let's not use mayonnaise, coleslaw and butter. Look at your olive oil content. Go Americano rather than cappuccino. Not every day, but if you're having 14 cappuccinos a week, why don't we just have 4? Calories are important. Calories unquestionably are the ruler or the dictator of weight. When you get someone that tells you they don't eat anything, they're at 1,000 calories through liquids and condiments. Mayonnaise, a teaspoon of mayonnaise, 110 calories. People are completely dumbfounded when you actually track calories.
And kind of this myth of you have a slow one, you have a fast one. Young kids have fast metabolism. When you get older, it slows down.
Get them to understand that a lot of the problems with younger developing athletes is that they're pushed too much. There's too much of this anaerobic demand. They're under pressure all the time. When realistically, little Charlie just needs to go for a 30-minute easy run and go to bed a bit earlier, you know?
What is the most common question you get from clients?
What do you actually do for a living? No, that's the question I get asked when I'm out on a Saturday night.
I just test people's oxygen.
I just stick masks on people's face and look at what they do. I know, but see, even that, like, sports nutrition isn't health nutrition. So jam and white bread and Frosties and Cocoa Pops and bagels and Lucozade Sport and apple juice, that's the shit you want to be eating, not bowls of pasta. Intermittent fasting's not magic. There's too much bullshit out there in regards to the likes of intermittent fasting. Ketogenic diets aren't magic.
Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Shaun with us. Shaun, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. Firstly, thanks for having me on. My name is Seán Kinane. I'm the owner, chief tester of a company called My Health Matters, which has been in operation now for nearly 14 years in Ireland, carrying out metabolic and VO2 analysis.
Wow, 14 years. 14 years. I was amazed when I was reading your story, just how it grew. Yeah,
it's been, this year alone, like year one, we did 259 tests. Recently, in a week, we did 157.
Wow.
Yeah, so our target this year was 4,000. We're going to just come slightly short on that. We're looking at about 3,920 tests done in a calendar year.
Wow, so literally only 80 short.
Yeah, and I'm not happy about it. But look, I took delivery of a 4th machine today, or a 4th unit. I just need extra staff now because we're pushed to a limit at the moment, you know.
And it's probably the hardest time to recruit as well, as we record this, we're coming up to Christmas time.
Yeah, and look, December is normally a quiet time for me. It's normally a very, very quiet month, but this year, like no other, we are it's the 11th of December. December has been full for me now for, I don't know, weeks. We're completely chock-a-block. We're doing 12, 14 hours a day, every day. It's just manic at the moment. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
I bet. Are you taking a break over Christmas, or are you going straight in?
No. It is one of the times that I do take a break. So I personally will finish up on the 20th. I'm actually going over to watch my beloved Aston Villa play Man City on the 21st. And I personally won't be back in work till the 6th of January.
Nice.
Now,
nice
the company will open back up. We'll be back testing from the 3rd, but I personally, it is one of the only times where I down tools and awesome. I don't come to work. But my mind is always in work.
It's great to hear, though, because I speak to so many business owners that it's just, I know myself, it's 100 mile an hour. It's 100 mile an hour and you never take a break, but it's nice to hear that someone's being sensible and taking that break over Christmas as well.
I was in Lapland last week with the kids, so...
amazing.
That was 4 days off as well, so I'm spoiling myself completely.
Just quickly, if anyone doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a bit more about your background?
Yeah, so background, left school, 17 years of age, no intention to go to college, went straight in to become a lift engineer. So I did a dual apprenticeship, a qualified electrician, qualified mechanical engineer, and was working away at that for quite some time. And then we were going to travel to Australia and I didn't want to work in a lift shaft. So I became a personal trainer. Now, I didn't work in Ireland. I became a personal trainer just through a course. And we went traveling in 2009. Went over to South America and continued to travel through South America into New Zealand, Australia, Southeast Asia. We did a lot of traveling, but while abroad, I got a job in Perth, Australia, working as a personal trainer. One of the guys in the gym that I worked in had this equipment doing metabolic analysis, and it stoked my interest. I started to put clients through him. Then I started to work directly with him, and that kind of just, that was it. I left. I went traveling for another 8 months and then came back to Ireland in 2010. And that was December 2010. And by April, Health Matters had been created in 2011. Wow. So I continue to do some subsequent study, and I constantly do subsequent study. I think I'm at an end now, though. I told my wife recently, I'm not going back. I'm not doing more. But I'm in a place now where we are incredibly active, incredibly qualified, incredibly experienced within a performance field of exercise physiology, exercise performance, exercise nutrition, general nutrition, well-being, nutritional therapy. We do a lot within the platform. So it's been a journey. I absolutely love it. I never, ever, ever, ever for 1 second of any day regret being in Health Matters. Nothing is too much for me. I love making a difference in people's lives every day, and it's a joy to be part of, or to have created what I do, you know.
It's amazing to hear as well of that whole thing of you didn't fall into it directly, but sometimes these strange opportunities just happen. And then that's the trajectory for a large chunk of your life.
Yeah, it's been quite a large chunk of my life at the moment, you know. But even now, my kids, when I come home, my little boy says to me, "How many VO2 tests you do today, Daddy? You know, how many metabolic tests did you do?" And he speaks to me about protein and speak about carbohydrate, and it's the part of life now, you know.
Yeah, definitely. What was the biggest thing that piqued your interest with it?
Just the individuality. Like I'm a man of facts and figures, and I don't like to use guesswork or algorithms. And I love the testing that we do is 98% accurate, but it's based off your profile. It's individuality. There's no influencing factors from outside. So everybody's body is different. And if everybody's body is different, how can we generalize people just because of their age, height, weight, or gender? You know, it doesn't work like that. So the fact that it can be so specific to an individual, and then when worked with directly, you can get great success. And then look, don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, it's a business, and it's a business that wasn't in the country. I still have the market share. Don't get me wrong, there is numerous other people copying my business model, which is fine. I have no problem with it. Competition is good. There's plenty of room for other people in the country, but I'm very happy with our standards to deal with what's out there, you know.
It's amazing as well, because I think as someone that spent more time in sort of at your average show sport and performance, it's interesting as well because so much of that information, particularly on social media, is all about kind of, oh, here's a general rule of thumb, here's a new diet structure, here's do this. So it's really interesting to hear how your work's so individualized, and I think I'm looking forward to diving into a bit more about how it individually works. Particularly, I think one of the questions that I'll just bring it up now. One of the questions I was going to ask was the impact of work, if you've worked with any disabled clients, and the impact of that on the results that they've seen, particularly because it's an area of interest of mine, being disabled as well, because I've always wondered there's almost this debate of, does it mean that you burn more? Does it mean that you burn less? It's like, where does that fall? So I was intrigued to see what you've seen with the clients you've worked with. So,
again, there's no rule to say if you're someone that's wheelchair bound, let's say, that you're going to burn less calories in a state of rest. So resting metabolic rate is the rate at which you burn energy to sustain life in a 24-hour period. There's many different contributing factors to it: genetics, body composition, training load, training history. That's the actual ORMR. What's going to burn extra calories through the day, which will be known as your NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's your general ability to move, to fidget, depending on what your job is. But if you have someone that's, let's say, wheelchair bound, but is still very, very active in their day-to-day life, They may still go to the gym. They may still lift weights. They still may have a decent body composition in regards to muscle mass in the upper body. And again, it depends on what the disability is as well. So there's many different forms of disabilities that you work with, but it still doesn't change. I cannot say for 1 second, just because somebody's in a wheelchair, that their metabolic rate is lower. Like, I don't know that. I don't know that. I've done over 20,000 tests. I can't make them assumptions. I can't make the assumption that, or use the example of a 115 kilo female that's able-bodied. It's wrong for anyone to assume that she's a low metabolic rate because she's 115 kilos. Most of the time, she has a really high metabolic rate because of the mass, the size. So it doesn't matter who presents to me in regards to, the person is the person. And we worked with a load of wheelchair users from a performance perspective. So we did VO2 analysis and metabolic analysis on them. And we have them that they were in a position where we just work directly with their data. Their data is their data. Yeah. That's their individual data. You know, we worked with, a couple of years ago, I worked with a dwarf, so to speak, in regards to, I don't know if that's the right terminology that we were going to, but that's what she called herself when she booked it in. So I'm happy to roll with it. And this female was only like 3'6" or something, you know, like tiny. But we worked with her data based on her profile. Yeah. So it doesn't matter regarding the disability or the functionality or the activity levels. We will screen you pre-testing and we will treat you as an individual. And if that individual can only do a certain amount of exercise at a certain level of intensity at a certain heart rate because they're restricted, or they can only use the hand bike and they can't do it for long periods of time. Like, we create zone 2 for people using hand bikes.
Yeah. Which we're going to dive into a bit later. But one of the things I wanted to get you to elaborate on, because I think one of the, particularly from the space of my condition, cerebral palsy, one of the theories when we talk about impact of metabolic rate is the theory that because daily tasks take us more energy, that then increases our need. And I've always been curious of it, but never tested it, of is that true or is that false? Because then there's the argument of we don't have as much fidget need because we don't fidget as much, and it's a bit of a weird one.
It's very hard, and I'm famous for nearly saying it depends all the time. Like, it's not it's not a black and white answer. What's measurable is resting metabolic rate. What's predicted is lifestyle and activity. Okay. So although the energy required to carry out a task is going to require more energy to do that, that would contribute to your ORMOR measurement. But then your lifestyle and activity levels, are they going to be low? It's like, again, it's all about dealing with and delving into and questioning you as an individual and treating you. And look, don't get me wrong, when we get data in and we measure accurately, it's still up to us to work closely with you and say, okay, are we hitting the nail here on the head? Are you too low on calories? Are you too high on calories? How's your energy? How's your sleep? How's your recovery? How's your mood? How's your cognitive function? There's loads of different contributing factors. And us as coaches or caregivers, that's where we need to develop that relationship in a bit more detail once the client comes in or out. And if they want to work with us on a much closer level, we're here to support them.
I suppose, as you say, it's all very, as we said at the beginning, it's all very individualized, and as I say, it depends on so many factors. So it's difficult to say. I think I was just intrigued to see what answer you would give. We've mentioned it a couple of times. What is VO2 testing?
So VO2 stands for volume of oxygen. It's a gold standard fitness test. So it's done worldwide and has been generally only available in hospitals and universities, a very time consuming, expensive cost. I've offered it in Ireland for 14 years. There's lots more people have come in. There is lots of facilities worldwide now where people can get it done. So it's a fitness test basically, but now they're talking about it being a health metric. So there's no other predictor of longevity as accurately as VO2. So if you think about it, someone that has a high VO2 is going to be generally very fit, very cardiovascularly fit, which is going to obviously contribute to longevity and well-being. I think it grew a lot over COVID. We were aware of the health aspect of People with higher VO2s didn't suffer as bad with COVID symptoms, or they come out of COVID a lot quicker. And then it was studied a lot more. So the likes of Dr. Peter Attia, who's beating the drum here constantly about growing the VO2, and the bigger the VO2, the longer you live. Traditionally, it's a fitness measurement. It's the amount of oxygen you consume in milliliters per kilogram of body mass, averaged over 1 minute. And before we delve into it, your watch doesn't know your VO2 because it's not connected to your lungs. So anyone that's listening to this that thinks their watch accuracy in VO2 is right, you can forget it.
Why do they still, if it's that, I mean, I know the fitness trackers are notoriously accurate, but why is it there if it's so clearly not going to measure it properly?
It's marketable, isn't it? It's a retention tool. It's people, like, I do a lot of work in Apple, and when we go down and tell people their Apple watches are inaccurate, it's like, I don't know.
Throws the cat amongst the pigeons.
It's, do you know what it is? Like, wearables get people moving at the end of the day. And if you're aware that you have to take them with a pinch of salt, and you understand that in order to measure VO2, it has to be a respiratory measurement. Once you're clued into that, like, your VO2 will decrease when you do endurance training. I recently ran Dublin, which recently, probably about 6 weeks ago now, and my VO2 was at the lowest it's ever been recorded on my watch because my training was at a low intensity for long duration. I was the fittest I've ever been. So we can buy into the concept of, okay, is this a real measurement? But it's measurable through, it's a mask, will sit on your face, it will connect to the tube, and we will do a progressive overload on whatever piece of equipment. So we can do it as a run test, we can do it on a treadmill, we can do it on a rower, we can do it on a road bike, we can do it on a watt bike, we can do it on a hand bike. There's lots of different measurables. But what we do, it's progressive overload. So starting off incredibly easy and finishing incredibly
hard. I don't miss those days. Being a sprinter back, swimming sprinter back in the day, I don't miss those sessions where I felt like I was going to pass out.
Yes, they're not enjoyable.
So who is sort of your main client base for VO2 testing?
Do you know what? So when I started the company, I would have said my main client would have been an endurance athlete. So we have your triathletes, you have your Ironmen, you have your runners, but then you start to have your endurance cyclists. We now have what's taken the world by storm, High Rocks. High Rocks athletes are one of our most popular clients at the moment, in saying that we have contracts with the most random things you can think of. We have contracts with the Fire Brigade, we have the contract with the Irish Prison Service, we have contract with underwater welders, we have contracts with pilots. Like, it's a measurement that people use it for so many different things. And now that it's being predicted or used as a health metric, we are working with anybody. Still, your endurance-based athlete is going to be your number one, you know?
It's interesting. So what is what's the trajectory? When you say it's being used more as a health metric, who have you seen come through the door in terms of what sort of conditions or things are they looking at?
I wouldn't say conditions, but people are just more aware. So we know, like, you're scaled on a level depending on age and gender, and we know by taking yourself from a very low level to a low level VO2, you add 5 years onto your life. So it's a metric that can be, people are going, do you know what? I need to make an impact here, positive impact on my life. I had a guy in October 23, 118 kilos, just had his first child, came to me and said, I want to see my child grow up. I want to see my daughter grow up. And within a year, he'd taken his score from very low to superior. He had dropped 22 kilos. He was now unable to walk up a flight of stairs. He was running a marathon, you know, like, so it's the guidance that comes with the internal aspect of VO2 testing, which is zones and thresholds and stuff, which we'll talk about. But it's, I don't know, it's anybody and everybody. Like, literally, I could have the widest range of clientele in a day.
I mean, that must mean that, like, every day is interesting, though, because you're not going football player after football player after football player, and then you go same again. But then I suppose everyone's stats are different, so it's. Everybody's stats are different, but everybody's interpretation, how they speak to me, my interactions, like every 30 to 45 minutes, I'll have a new person in front of me, you know, so. Keeps you on your toes.
Yes, for sure.
What about, in terms of, like, you've spoken a bit about the process of VO2 testing. What is, like, an idiot's guide? Like, walk me through the process of doing that test and what would be involved. So if I rocked up to you today and said, right, I want to do a VO2 test, what would be sort of the first starting blocks?
So we'd get your profile set up. So age, height, weight, gender, full name, activity level, goals, that kind of thing. Get a bit of a background into what your sport is. Quiz you in types of how you're training. So what type of training week? What does it look like? What's your understanding of the likes of heart rates? So let's say you're doing a test on a treadmill. We'd get a mask on you. Mask has a valve on the front of it, which allows for a breath in and breath out. We get a heart rate monitor on you. We'll screen you for injuries, medical concerns, anything like that, and get you standing on a treadmill. You stand still for 1 minute, and then we get you walking. We start to get you walking up a small gradient, into a light jog, into a faster jog, into a run, up a hill, sprint as much as you can. And it just keeps going until the client wants to stop. And once the client stops, we put them into an active recovery. We measure the recovery. So i.e. what their ventilation, what their breath works like, what's the heart rate recovery like. And then we get them off and we go through all the data. So we take them through every aspect of the performance that they need to understand.
And am I right in thinking part of the sort of after effects, not after effects, the after work is sort of working with, I think you mentioned it earlier, zone 2 training and working on the best way of training for that individual?
Yeah, so like zone 2, we can kind of go into it. Like zone 2 for everybody is different. It's not just a percentage of max heart rate, because people have different heart rate zones and different exposures to different stresses in life. And a lot of times when people go, oh, you're a 40-year-old female, oh, you're this way, okay, you need to keep your heart rate at that. Like, it's absolute bullshit. Nobody's heart is the same just because they're the same age, height and weight. It's just so bad. And constantly people are coming into me saying, oh, I'm always in zone 5. I'm like, you're not in zone 5. You're in a predicted zone 5. So zones, when used correctly, are about understanding energy systems. So we all speak about zones, but we don't understand what they are. So I question people, what does zone 2 mean? And people don't know what it means. Like, we have energy systems, one's called aerobic and one's called anaerobic. And when we work with our zones keep us in our energy systems. So if our objective is to develop an aerobic capacity or an aerobic base, we need to stay within our parameters. If we need to stimulate an anaerobic metabolism or stimulate tempo training or build up a resistance to fatigue through anaerobic training, we need to be in certain training zones. But a lot of people don't really understand what they're doing when they use zones. So zones are related to energy systems, and we develop or identify energy systems through testing. And then when we get your zones created, we can go, okay, you're really aerobically underdeveloped, or you're really anaerobic dominant, but your sport is aerobic, and we need to develop it out a different way. So it's all about the manipulation of the client's weaknesses and strengths and listening to them. And they're like, I always get injured. I'm always tired towards the end of the week. You're like, you're the typical athlete, underfueled, overtrained.
And also underslept is one of those. And I think I was
I had a female client in this morning, and I told her I was going to talk about her. She was your absolute pinnacle of what we've just discussed. Newborn baby, training 10 to 12 hours plus a week, and significantly underfueled. So, wow. Yes.
Doing that. I'm sitting there going, I struggle to get 12 hours. I'd struggle to get 12 hours in, let alone having a baby and doing that as well.
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy, you know. But we see it all the day, and it's the pressures of society and social media and people's just inability to understand that less is more.
What would you say on that, though, when it comes to, obviously, training, talking of training more as sort of the average Joe, there's kind of this mentality of just keep training. Whereas, obviously, I know that it should be shifted more to, you've also got to recover. And if you don't recover, then that's going to cause problems later down the line. Not only that, but also your training is going to be less effective. What advice would you give, particularly someone working in the field that you do with so much data and so much information? What is an ideal? I mean, you can't say for everyone, because then again, everyone's different, but what is sort of, where should people be aiming if they want the most sustainable way of training?
It depends. It depends on you as an individual, but you need to train easy to train hard. You need to make your hard sessions count, and you need to make your easy sessions count. Because if you're constantly a 6 or a 7 out of 10, your training is shit. We need to deliver 9 out of 10s, and we need 5s out of 10s. If you need a big pyramid, you need a wide base. If you want a solid house, you need a better foundation. Put any analogy you want on it. But if you're someone that sits back at the end of every week and is tired and falls asleep and needs to nap and suffers bad DOMs and is irritable with their partner or their children or their work colleagues, their gains have stagnated. Someone that trains like mad but never gets the results that they need to get in competition. The problem is you're overtrained and underfueled. You need to reevaluate. You need to critically evaluate and be honest with yourself and say, well, is there quality in what you're doing? Probably not. But society or pressure from your gym friends or your colleagues to turn up and push and push and push isn't always the answer. So many people break down because they just train too hard too often. You need to build base.
What about, because one of the other areas I was going to get you to still go on, because we've had an expert speak on it as well, is the impact of sleep. Because I think funny enough, I was having this conversation with my partner this morning, got up and trained this morning, and I was like, it's a bit of a catch-22 for anyone that works a 9-to-5 job, because you end up having to get up early to get to the gym or go training later in the day. And then you kind of just, I mean, I haven't got kids, and then you add kids as well, and it's just so many plates spinning. So what's more valuable? Do you sleep more so you recover better, or do you train? It's like a giant puzzle.
But this is where you understand that your training load isn't set in stone. You need to listen to your body. Like, there's no point in you getting up at 5 a.m. every day, underfueled, underslept, to go in and do high intensity anaerobic training that just fucks you up. You know, I've seen it. I've talked to people about it. I always tell this story. Not too long ago, a friend of mine rang me, I think it was last year. He's like, Seán, I'm fucked. I've no energy. I can't get an erection. My mood is down. I'm really fatigued. My lifts aren't going. My competitions are poor. I think I need to go and get my bloods done. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute here. How many times a week are you training? So he's training 11 times a week. He's not a professional athlete. He was getting on average 5 hours sleep. Out of them 11 sessions, 7 of them were anaerobic, which were glycolytically dependent, but he does them fasted. And I was like, man, you are missing the whole object. Like, people, it's very straightforward. So what we needed to do was we needed to reduce the high intensity. We needed to fuel them better for them, and we needed them to sleep better. And lo and behold, everything came in the right direction. Okay? So there was nothing wrong with him other than he was just turning up because this is the pressures that he was putting on himself. When you are in that moment, you don't critically evaluate. That's my job. I play devil's advocate. I pull people's training apart because they don't want to hear it. I deliver news that people don't want to hear. I have no problem doing that because that's my job. And it's very simple. It's very easily corrected. Got him to bring some apple juice in, drink a bit more Lucozade, have a bit more carbohydrates, sleep a bit more, bring in some base building work, and everything's gone to plan.
But then I think a lot of people argue with that. It's like, I think for your average Joe, it's like there's a lot of, to do the test and listen to your body, like to consistently listen to your body to the point where you've done something enough times to know, okay, this is right, this is wrong, I need to adjust this, take this out. I think a lot of people will argue it's so hard to sustain that. So what would you say to someone who is really into training but has a very hectic outside of training life to try and get the right sort of idea of where they should be sitting?
But see, that's what makes it even worse. So you've someone that's in a high stressful position, stressed in life, and they drive white knuckled, stressed out of their head to get to a spin class or a gym class that's going to be an anaerobic stress. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You need to make it make sense, and you need to get where your goal is. And if your goal is up here, and we need to line all the things up that get you there, and we need to look at the things that don't get you there. It's just about observation and taking your time to understand that working at a lower intensity and getting a bit more sleep will have a more profound effect than going to that one class where you're going to feel shit because you've gone in because you're fatigued. It's understanding the journey. Like, I'm on a program, I'm on a plan that it rolls daily. And if last week I was in Lapland and I fell over and I banged my knee, and my knee dominant exercises this week have been taken out. Have I gone a week back? Yeah, of course I have. But does it matter? No. Like, I need to work with what's presenting with you in front of you. People want results too quick. The human body and human physiology takes a lot of times to adapt, and when supplied with the correct fuel, i.e. food, i.e. sleep, i.e. water, and the correct training stimulations, both high and low, it's amazing. But if something's out of balance, it ain't going to work.
I think one of the biggest reasons, I imagine, that particularly your average trainer does the whole, oh, I've got to get up, got to do this, got to do that, is always because we're always playing the calorie game. And it's always like, oh, I need to eat. Like, it's either you've got someone who, I'm thinking your weightlifter, stuff like that, they want to eat loads because they want to gain size, or you've got the opposite and they want to lose weight. And then that's where it comes in of, like you said earlier, the whole debate of eating and stuff before training, because there's also which I was going to come on to, is the popularity of intermittent fasting, and how that sort of spiraled to everyone's like, oh no, I can't eat in the mornings because then that's going to break my fast and it's going to stop me losing weight and this, that, the other. So I think that's the other issue we've got, is there's so much focus on calories. And I know you do a lot, which we're going to come on to, the metabolic testing. Hopefully that might give some people some insight. But what would you say about this whole thing of everyone so focused on calories? And they're either, is always, what's interesting is, from even my friends, it's either you're or one camp or the other. It's either, right, I'm gaining size or I'm losing weight. No one's ever just, I'm good, I'm eating my bit, I'm doing what I need to do. No one's ever just happy there. But then I suppose that's human nature.
Yeah, like, look, people make weight management confusing because it's very hard. Weight management shouldn't be confusing. Weight management is maths. And people are trying to make a quick win and show you that their thing is the best, or my thing is the best, or I can do this, I can do that. When realistically, when you understand human physiology, calories are important. Calories unquestionably are the ruler or the dictator of weight. That's the only thing that matters. There's nothing else involved. Nothing. There's many contributing factors to how we feel and what the hormonal responses are and what carbohydrate and protein do under the hood and what satiety levels are like and inflammation and hormonal irregularities. But calories are the dictator. And when people understand that, the journey becomes a lot more straightforward.
What would you say if I was saying, right, okay, Shaun, give me an idiot's guide of somewhere, like a starting point for someone that's like, I'm stuck in this spiral of, I don't know where to go, this way, that way. What do I do?
Like, what, in regards to what? Weight management?
Yeah, in regards to, like, I'm thinking of your yo-yo dieters. Even I know myself from back in my swimming days, it was that whole thing of, like, I was burning so much and I was told by coaches to cram in X amount of calories.
I think it's a great question, because I have people that come into me and tell me they can't lose weight on 1,200 calories. And this person could be 6'3" and 200 kilos. I have a 6-year-old daughter that eats 1,200 calories. Calories are in everything. Absolutely everything. 0-calorie drinks have calories in them. Okay?
Yeah.
So my biggest advice for anyone that wants to understand is to learn about what you're consuming. 7 almonds has 100 calories. A tablespoon of olive oil has 140. A heaped tablespoon of peanut butter is 280. Standard cappuccino, 250. Standard latte, 150. All of a sudden, you get someone that tells you they don't eat anything. They're at 1,000 calories through liquids and condiments. Mayonnaise, a teaspoon of mayonnaise, 110 calories. People are completely dumbfounded when you actually track calories. And unless you track your calories accurately, you've no clue about what you're consuming. And this statement that tracking calories is creating an unhealthy relationship with food, in my opinion, I probably should have held that back, is bullshit. Because all I'm trying to do is raise the awareness for what you consume. I don't need you to track calories forever.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I need you to understand that your calories are either going to break your goal.
Yeah.
And if your goal is to lose weight, you need to create a caloric deficit. If your goal is to gain weight, we generally need a caloric surplus. If you're someone that's underperforming in work, you're tired all the time, there's a very good chance you're underfueled. So underfueled doesn't mean you're not losing weight. Underfueled could be 1,000 calorie range where you're not consuming enough.
So when you say underfueled in terms of you're in 1,000 calorie, do you saying someone's they should be consuming 1,000 calories more than what they currently are?
It's just an example. Like I had a woman in today, the same woman, she did her metabolic test. I said to her, how much is she eating? She told me she was eating 2,600 calories. She trains a lot. She's an active job. She's burning about 4,000 calories a day. Now, I don't believe she's eating 2.6. She's probably eating about 2.9, so she's not creating enough of a deficit to trigger weight loss because her body is fed enough where her RMR is being matched and her output's being matched. But she's not looking to drop weight. She wants to perform. So there's a big window there. There's a gap where she's underfueled, but not underfueled enough to be dropping that weight consistently.
I was just going to come back to your point earlier of like the whole thing of that there's a negativity to understanding calories and how they work. I think the big thing I found from my swimming career is it more was getting to the point where I just understood. I could then figure, for someone like your average Joe, you have more of a ballpark to work within in terms of, you know, roughly what things are going to be. But then I do see the point of, you can become, which I did, you can become very obsessive over it. And that's where I think it can become a bit of a problem.
Yeah, but like I think if you don't get tested, so let's say you didn't have the insights that I can provide you, where you're working on a guesswork at this point. And look, that's an individual thing. I can't help people. I'm not saying everybody should do it, but I think everybody can learn by learning about how much they consume over a 2 to 4 week period. Get a general understanding of where your high calories, where your low calories are, or whatever it might be, you know?
And we've spoken a lot about like metabolics as well. And I know another service you offer is metabolic testing. When you say metabolic testing, what is that? In my head, I'm like, just Sean's about to tell me that, oh, you've got a really fast metabolism. Oh, you got a really slow one.
Yeah, so metabolic testing is a 98% accurate measurement on someone's resting metabolic rate. So your biggest burner of energy in a 24-hour period. It's done through a very simple test called indirect kilometry, where you breathe into a small apparatus. We know it takes 0.8 of a milliliter of oxygen to burn 1 calorie. So if we know how much oxygen you consume, we know how much calories you burn. So this is where the dictator is of people. I'm testing 14 years. I've yet to see a broken metabolism. Broken metabolisms don't actually exist. Now, you can have a slightly lower than average metabolism, or you can have a really high metabolism. But what we do when we test is all about gathering the accuracy about you, again, as an individual, to arm you with your specific numbers to help you achieve whatever goal you may have.
That's really interesting. I didn't, to be honest, before I did the research, I didn't even know this type of test existed. It was kind of, the metabolism's always been kind of this myth. Of you have a slow one, you have a fast one. Young kids have fast metabolism. When you get older, it slows down, or you get broken
even
ones.
That statement, when it gets older, it slows down. It slows down because you slow down, you stop moving, you reduce muscle. If you, like my dad's 73, trains in the gym 4 days a week. He's just left the house here. He's minding the kids. He's brought them into town. He's mad. He's strength training. I've tested him every year. His metabolic rate hasn't changed anywhere. You know,
it's what you do. I suppose it's what you do. It's that, like you say, if you slow down, it's naturally gonna slow down because you're doing less.
It's like people saying, oh, I'd gain weight when I got older. You gain weight because you're older, because you're retired. You don't have young kids. You don't go walking as much. Your steps are down. You've reduced your muscle mass because you're not active as much. Your RMR has reduced. So then all of a sudden, your eating habits, your input has gone up and your output has gone down. It's maths. It's when people change from active jobs to sedentary jobs. It's maths.
What about in terms of like, because the big conversation around knowing your numbers can be that, like, how do you then balance that with, I have a feeling I'm going to know your answer, but balancing that with day-to-day life of like, we're going for dinner for this, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I know, like we said earlier, it's sort of knowing the impacts of calories in versus calories out, and also what likelihood of the numbers you're going to be taking in. But what do you say to clients? So like, I can't constantly stay on track, and if things go wrong, and because I think that's a big part of our society.
It's not about things going wrong. It's understanding that, number one, you have to be happy in what you're doing. Number one, it has to be sustainable. If you said to me, Sean, I want to drop a certain amount of weight in 6 weeks, I'm not going to be able to help you. I'm not here for a quick fix. For number one, understand that you're a person and that you have family and you have children and you have partners and you have occasions. I want you to go and enjoy all of them. We can control the controllables. If we have a party coming up on Saturday night where you're going to go out and enjoy yourself, make sure the week leading in is really on point. Let's know our numbers. Let's have the next day have lower calorie crisps, use 0 calorie drinks, don't get a stuffed crust pizza, get a tin-based pizza. Use what you can use, but go and enjoy yourself and understand that the journey takes time. The journey takes time because once adherable to long term, you're going to get success. You don't have to go and eat lettuce for 6 weeks to go and fit in a bikini and then put it all back on.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you need to understand we can control what we can control. If we go out, do we have a lower calorie beer? Do we not have a starter? Do we not have a dessert? Do we have higher protein? Do we ask for veg and cheddar chips, sauce on the side, tin-based pizza? There's so many ways around living life. I know what I eat generally on a day-to-day basis. Does it change my life? No, but I know what I'm eating.
Yeah. And it's that whole thing of, as say, just knowing how it works. Because the biggest thing is, like, I think there's also this culture of like, oh, if I get it wrong once, then it's all going to go out the window. But then it's that other thing that I always say to people of get away from that. Oh, I want to be doing this in the next 6 weeks, but then after that I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. No, if you switch your outlook to this is just what I do now, it's going to be so much more sustainable.
Like I know what calories I eat in a day because I have the same breakfast every day. I pretty much have a couple of different lunches. I know what my snacks are. I know what my dinners are. When I have them, they're in my library. I just add them depending on what my goal is. But like you said, that's my life. Like I go out, I'll go, can I get sauce on the side? I'm not thinking, oh my God, if I eat sauce, I'm going to gain weight. I'm like, I don't want to dress my food in a tub of garlic butter. Yeah. I just want it on the side. Can I get veg instead of chips? I prefer veg. Somebody I'm with might have chips. I might take a couple of chips, but that doesn't mean I'm going to have that forever. Do I get a 0 calorie drink? I think Coke Zero is nicer than normal Coke. I'm not going, oh my God, there's calories in it, but you're controlling it. If I was the other way, if I wanted it, training for a marathon, did I eat more carbohydrate? Did I have more full fat Coke or full carbohydrate Coke? Yeah, I did. It's all about the circumstances that you as an individual are presenting with. And if I can get you to be a bit more aware, let's use weight loss. Let's go with lighter than light mayo. Let's use a bit less butter. Let's not use mayonnaise, coleslaw and butter. Look at your olive oil content. Go Americano rather than cappuccino. Not every day, but if you're having 14 cappuccinos a week, why don't we just have 4? You've saved yourself 200 calories a drink. Like these are very, very simple wins that I'm not changing your life. I'm just making you aware of what's going on.
I mean, that was one of the things that shocked me when I was scrolling through your Instagram was I think you have a client that had 14 cups. It was something ridiculous, like 20 cups a week or something like that?
14 cappuccinos a week, 2 a day.
Bloody hell. I have a lot of coffee, but I don't know whether I could do, that'd be expensive. That would be very expensive.
It was, and I mentioned that it was expensive.
So who is the main client base for your metabolic testing?
Yeah, definitely weight management, definitely.
Weight management.
But we now are doing a lot of dual testing. Hyrox athletes are doing more dual testing than anybody's ever done before because they're looking at their fueling strategies.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. What about because I remember seeing on your Instagram talking of it that there was a debate that someone came in and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be working with children." Can you talk to us about some of the work you've done with younger athletes?
Yeah, so like we do a lot of work with the development squads. We do a lot of younger footballers, a lot of younger cyclists, and it was at the debate came up that we shouldn't be testing them because we're putting them in a state where they're driven to be overtrained, so to speak. The person that I got into the discussion with obviously didn't understand my ethos in terms of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to provide a better platform for these people to propel a better success long-term because they'll have a better aerobic development. So we test them. We don't do metabolic testing. We do VO2 testing where we provide them with their data from a performance perspective. And we're happy to work with them if they want to be worked with, to get them to understand that a lot of the problems with younger developing athletes is that they're pushed too much. There's too much of this anaerobic demand. They're under pressure all the time, when realistically little Charlie just needs to go for a 30-minute easy run and go to bed a bit earlier, and make sure that he understands that he doesn't need to go and do 15 hill sprints after doing 2 training sessions that day, and educating the kids on, look, let's build this base, let you understand it. And me as an outsider, a lot of the time it's their parents that brings them and is the driving factor. And look, we look at a lot of professional athletes, and the reason they're professional is because the drive that they had to succeed at the start. But sometimes, like a lot of times, parents don't know what's best. And if we can get me or somebody within the field or performance or my company to say, look, this is what we need to do, the kids are going to listen a bit more and understand that every session doesn't have to hurt and every session doesn't have to fuck them up in terms of coming home where they're in bits. It's all about looking at the bigger picture,
Do you find, because I'm thinking as well, particularly when I first started competing, that there's still, I think online, there's still that image of, we talked about earlier, of like, keep pushing. Do you find a lot with the younger athletes of going like, I don't know, Cristiano Ronaldo shows that he's doing all this stuff, but we need to turn this down, and here's why?
Yep. It's like David Goggins doesn't help anything. Like Cristiano Ronaldo has a sleep chamber in his house, and he has maids to mind his children when he sleeps for 10 hours a day. It's I know a lot of athletes, I work with a lot of athletes, and a lot of them don't post their easy stuff, where I'm getting onto them saying, man, you need to post the stuff that you're doing, that I've programmed for you, that I know you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
So when you said, obviously we spoke quite a lot about like the easy stuff to do. Is that, when you say that, is that like, I'd say you're going out for a walk instead of doing the intense sessions, or just doing a lighter session, sort of that active recovery approach?
Yeah, but like, I use Michael Fox as an example. Michael Fox I got Mickey Fox at a 2:41 marathon runner. He's now a 2:21 marathon runner. And he was doing his easy stuff too easy, and his hard stuff not hard enough. Or we get a lot of people in that speak about breaking the 3-hour mark in a marathon, but all the training is great, but they never get on below 3 hours, is because all their training is done too high. So we need them to roll in, to go high, to roll out. So we recover, we go aerobic, anaerobic, aerobic. So we're facilitating growth, we're developing oxidative tissue. We're getting you utilizing and recovering and adaptating and using VO2 at a better level. We're making you more aerobically robust. So it's all going to be very much so you as an individual. What are you looking for? What's your goal? What's holding you back? Why does it happen? And a lot of the times is people do their easy stuff too hard and their hard stuff too easy.
What is the most common question you get from clients?
What do you actually do for a living? No, that's the question I get asked when I'm out on a Saturday night and people have a few drinks in them and they see me out.
I just test people's oxygen. That's all I do.
I just stick masks on people's face and look at what they do.
But from clients, what's sort of the main question so you get asked?
Their zones. What are my zones? How do I use them? What's my VO2? What is my energy? How much fuel do I need? How much carbs do I need to take on board? Look, again, I'm working with so many different people in a day. Like today, we had just so many different types of clients. I sat back, I was with Keelan before I left this evening, and I was thinking that was a mad day. Like I was on site from 7:30 this morning. It's now 6:20. I'm back here doing this. I have another Zoom call at 7 o'clock, and then I'm done for the day. But like yesterday was a 14-hour day. We do not know who's going to come in. Like we had a 17-year-old girl, we had a 65-year-old man. I have a sub 3-hour marathon runner. I have a sub 2:30 marathon runner in. I have an A1 cyclist in. We just completely different people today. And
I suppose as well, it's like constantly switching hats for different types of athletes. It's like, okay, looking at this now.
That's my job. Like I'm used to it, so.
What about, I think a lot of people will be intrigued. Is there anyone that you've worked with that we might know?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people you work with that you're not allowed to tell you who you worked with. I work with a lot of people under contract where I can't tell you.
Fair enough. I wouldn't have even thought about I wouldn't even thought.
Like non-disclosure agreements. We have a number of non-disclosures in at the moment. where you just work behind the scenes, you know.
Yeah. So it's that whole thing.
Obviously, I did a lot of work with Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Johnny's an absolute hero. We'd no NDA with Johnny. A lot of UFC or a lot of MMA athletes, a lot of the top athletes in the country from a semi-professional, not professional, or even amateur level. I have obviously Seán Noble at the moment, who is the number one in Ireland for high rocks. He just got the world record for the Dublin one. He just got the 11th, I think the top 11 duel there on the weekend in Stockholm. I'm working with Shaun. Sean's an official sponsored Health Matters athlete. And then there's a number of athletes under the umbrella of We Can't Say, but we work with them under that. But look, you as an individual are as important to me as any of my professional athletes. Everybody has a role or has a position in Health Matters, and I'll treat you the exact same way. Look, famous or not famous, we all put our trousers on the same way, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to be fair, I'm shocked at how many amateur clients you have, because back when I was competing, I would have never have thought to go get my test done.
But see, that's the difference. I've created this company that we give you access to.
Because I think my brain would have gone, that's gonna be well expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's interesting that you get so many, but then I suppose then you can, like you say, you can sort of map the journey.
Yep. We can show them what they need to do.
Also, I'd love to I would love to have, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I would love to have seen the impact of if I did get it done. If at the time that I was competing.
Look, there's a lot of people that get it done and don't use it.
Really?
Yeah, because they don't like to be told what I've told them. I tell them they're not as good as they think they are and they need to slow down.
I suppose it's that whole thing of you always think you're doing the best for you, and actually when someone tells you who knows more, you don't want to hear it.
Nope.
On that note, I'm going to ask you the last question that I ask every guest, which is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with? Intermittent
fasting's not magic.
I had a feeling you were going to say this one.
I don't know. Look, there's too much bullshit out there in regards to the likes of intermittent fasting. We might as well go with intermittent fasting, you know, or hang on, no, let's go backtrack a minute. Ketogenic diets aren't magic.
Okay, let's just do both. Do you think intermittent fasting has its place though?
Okay, so for me, what works for you is what makes it successful. And if you feel that from a weight management perspective that intermittent fasting is successful, I'm okay with that. But when you start to tell me that you've gone in and done fasted cardio training because you're intermittent fasting, that's when I'm going to go, whoa, hang on a minute. Your performance is not going to be positively affected by you doing intermittent fasting.
So anyone that's doing any cardiovascular sport, you would say to avoid it.
But it's like ketogenic, right? The reason I lost weight is because I stopped eating carbohydrate. No, Mary, the reason you lost weight is because your caloric input is lower. You've taken a full food group out of your diet, which tends to be dressed in a lot of fat, i.e. pasta, bread or rice. You've increased your protein, you've increased your satiety, you're fuller for longer, and you've lowered your calories. But then you've people that go in and do high intensity anaerobic training, which is glycolytically dependent.
Yeah.
It is solely reliant on carbohydrate to create energy. That's when it's not going to work.
I think it's just, I've never really could wrap my head around keto diets because I'm like, it's just so unsustainable. I just look at it and go, stick you in a restaurant and you just panic.
Yeah, give us steak and chicken.
Yeah, it's just like you have to have the awkward conversation. Can I get the steak and broccoli and nothing else?
Yeah. It's not going to work.
But in terms of, do you think they do have their, like, is it just literally that if it works for you, it works for you? But I think one thing I found interesting from reading into you is I never, even though being quite a cardio-based person initially when I was younger, I just was like, I'll be fine because I'll get the carbohydrates in afterwards. Like, it won't make a difference.
No, I'm a massive, like, the day before the marathon, I had 10 times my body weight of carbohydrate. At I aim for 830 grams. I got 780 grams of carbohydrate. I fuel around performance depending on the intensity of my training. I'll have higher carb, I'll have lower carb. It makes a difference. Carbohydrates are your best friend for performance. Nobody ever underperformed by eating less carbohydrate. Nobody.
It's so interesting because there is so much culture that demonizes. I mean, there's so much culture that demonizes any food group. Yeah. But there's so much culture, particularly around carbs, that demonize it. Because I think even when I was swimming, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear the whole carbs are king, carbs are this, because I was just like, I'm so sick of eating so much pasta and shit. I just couldn't do it anymore.
I know, but see, even that, like, sports nutrition isn't health nutrition. So jam and white bread and Frosties and Cocoa Pops and bagels and Lucozade Sport and apple juice, that's the shit you want to be eating, not bowls of pasta.
Oh, don't. The amount of bloody, jelly cubes we'd be eating on poolside going, right, I've got 50 meters coming up, I go jam in the jelly. Or I wasn't one of them, but one of the boys kept putting olive oil in their shakes. He was part of that crew, and I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, look, everybody can benefit from having a good spoonful of cold pressed olive oil that's kept in a dark glass bottle in your fridge. But not olive oil that's been on the shelf of a supermarket that's been exposed to light and it's turned rancid already, you know?
It's just, I couldn't, the amount I saw him put in, I'm like, well, no, that's not me.
Thank you. No,
but
thanks.
It's been a really interesting conversation, particularly like around performance, because I don't think I dived as much into it as I thought I had when I was younger. So it's been really interesting to have you on. But thank you so much for coming on, Shaun. It's been really interesting. Of course, we'll link all of Shaun's details. If you are based in Ireland, definitely go check him out. I mean, if I was based in Ireland, I definitely would.
I had someone fly in from Finland last week just to work with me.
Jeez. Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move in with my uncles in Ireland and be like, right, I'll see you in 3 weeks, Shaun.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Although being with my Irish relatives and trying to do a fitness test, not a wise idea.
Not recommended.
No, they don't. They definitely fit the stereotype, my lot.
I was going to say, let's stereotype this. You're not coming in drunk.
No, yeah, they're definitely within that stereotype. They'd be like, wait, what are you doing? No, keep drinking. And you're like, nope. But thank you for coming on. We will link everything below and feel free to reach out to Shaun or myself if you have any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, my man.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.